Welcome to the Wealthy Artist Podcast. And I'm your host, Sarah Clanton.
And I'm Wilson Harwood, and we're talking about how to develop your wealth,
enjoy financial freedom,
enjoy artistic freedom,
and live the life you've always imagined.
All right, welcome everybody to the Wealthy Artist Podcast. I am rolling solo on this episode. Unfortunately, my wonderful and lovely co-host Sarah Clanton is feeling a little under the weather today. So I just decided that today I wanted to jump into a topic that I'm sure a lot of you are thinking about, which is, should I advertise my music on Facebook? Should I even jump into Facebook ads? There's a lot of myths and a lot of talk I've heard out there on the internet, or maybe even among your friend groups, of, hey, are you going to lose a ton of money on Facebook? You know, how much have you invested? Has anyone even succeeded on Facebook advertising? And so hopefully in this episode, I'll share some of my own experience that I've had with Facebook ads, and I'm going to tell you some things and resources that I think would help you with Facebook advertising. And so hopefully by the end of this, pretty short, I think it's going to be about a 20-minute episode or even less, you'll have a better understanding of if you want to even dive into Facebook advertising. So to quickly answer the question, so you can just stop the episode right now and be like, I don't even need to know, is yes, you definitely should advertise on Facebook. And I think the reason is that it is a tremendous resource for reaching tons and tons of potential fans and targeting them like a precision surgeon, which is almost impossible to do. Like, for example, if you go to a show and let's say that a bunch of people come to your show who are fans, but then they bring friends, and those friends may or may not like your music. There's really no way to tell, but with Facebook advertising, you can find a ton of people who are almost certain to like your music and literally send them a video of your music and turn them into a fan. So without going too far down the rabbit hole right now, I just want to give you my take on it, which is, yes, I think Facebook advertising is super important. So I think the most important thing to jump into is then what to expect. When you throw money at Facebook, there's a good chance you might lose it all and feel like you didn't get anything out of it. But before you think a lot about that, think about maybe how much money you've spent on PR campaigns or radio campaigns if you've done that. I know I spent several grand trying to get my music on college radio and into blogs and, print media, things like that. And at the end of the day, I spent, like $3,000. Didn't have that much to say for it. It was kind of like, that money is gone, and what do you have? Whereas with Facebook advertising, if you put $3,000 into a Facebook ad, you would get results. I guarantee it, just because that's such a large sum of money. And we'll be talking more about the range of like $300 to $1,000 with a Facebook ad campaign, because I truly think that you'll get the results you want out of something in that amount of money. There has been talk about, $1 a day advertising, which can work, but I do think that you will get more bang for your buck from what I've heard and experienced. Having a focused campaign that runs for maybe a month or two, or however big your budget is, on maybe somewhere around $5 to $10 a day, all the way up to upwards of $50 a day if you can afford it. And that's where you're really going to see, I think, the best results. So now that you kind of know what to expect, let's talk about maybe some of the numbers that you can expect to see. And I want to talk about, in my experience, so I've run ads for my course business, which I just did. So I recently just ran some ads for that. I've ran ads for my artist career before, and that's what we're mainly going to focus on, which was my music career. And I'm planning on running some ads eventually for this studio as well down the road. So I have some experience. I'm by no means a Facebook advertising pro. So listen to what I'm saying, knowing that I'm not an expert, but I'm just like you, someone who's an artist who's trying to figure out, how in the world do I get my music heard? So when I ran ads, let's see, it was about a year and a half ago or something like that. And I'm just going to pull up some of the numbers so I can remember here. So my ad that I ran was a music video that I had shot, about 4 years ago when I released my album. And the music video didn't do much, but what was cool is that I ended up taking a course on how to advertise, and I'll tell you more about that course later in this episode. And I repurposed that content. So this is the cool thing about advertising is you can have a music video or a video that you did years ago, and these fans out there, they've never heard of you. So this is new content to them. So you can reuse old content that you have. And so I reused this video. It was a live video I did at my friend's house. We did a whole house concert. It's super cool. If you go to my Facebook page, Wilson Harwood artist page on Facebook, you can see the ad that I had pinned to the top of my Facebook page. And it got 175,671 people were reached. I got 29,750 engagements. I got 2.3 thousand likes, or like faces or hearts or whatever you want to call them. And this was the thing that I loved the most, is I got 259 comments on that one video, and I got 1.4 thousand shares. And these comments were incredible. There were things like, love the banjo sound, melody is brilliant. This is just sublime. Let me look at some of these more. Let's look at, this is like how you can boost your ego, is looking at your advertising comments. But they were genuine comments from real people all over the world. I mean, this is just really cool what Facebook ads can do. Sounds amazing. Good work, bro. You know, like, he plays so well, but he has a truly lovely voice too. I mean, people are actually commenting on your ad. So the whole thing with these ads that is important, and you'll learn this if you take one of these courses that I recommend in a few minutes here, is that you want your video ad, the first ad you ever serve up to potential fans, to just be a video and make it look like a viral video. And there should be no call to action, which means there should be no button, no links, no nothing, which is so hard for us because we're so used to being like, listen to my music, like go listen to my music. But you have to understand with advertising, it's all about getting in front of somebody in a very normal, natural way, not forcing them to like you. So that's kind of the expectations you can have, numbers like that. And the amount of money I spent, and this is kind of a lot, but I spent about $900 on that ad to get those results. And I think that that was way more money than I should have been spending. And I think I could have done just as fine with, say, spending $500. But you do need some amount of money to sort of test out your ads. And the other cool thing is that when you spend that much money, let's say you spend $900, Facebook remembers all the people that you advertise to. So if you ever want to advertise to them again in the future, you can then send an ad to someone who you've already advertised to with the initial ad with a follow-up ad that maybe might do something like get them on your mailing list. So this is the power of Facebook. And at the same time, I can go into the back end of Business Manager, which is something that's totally different from, the front end of Facebook. We're not talking about boosting posts here. This is like real deal advertising, like all the major brands do. And you're going to go in and you can actually see where these people are located. So if you're trying to plan tours, or if you're trying to see where your audience naturally is happening around the world, you might be surprised to find that you have tons of fans in London or tons of fans in Ireland, like I found. And I had a lot of fans in Canada. So these are things that are like, holy cow, I could actually tour to these places in the future and try to reach these people on a deeper level. But to start out with, now I'm running Facebook ads and doing market research. So the money is so much better spent than sending it away to some PR campaign where you don't get any information. You can't re-interact with them any time in the future. And you basically have no data. And we are in such a data-driven world right now that this is so important. So enough about what to expect. The next thing I want to talk about is what to budget. So you heard a little bit about some of my budgets that I've spent in the past. And this is a tricky topic. Whenever we're talking about money, as you guys know, Sarah and I love to try to break the taboo around money. So I talk about it openly. I just told you I spent $917 or something like that on ads. And in a lot of ways, that money felt like a loss because I didn't have sales directly from it, but it felt like a win because of what I said, where I have all this data now that I can build off of. So I think it's important, like anything with a release or a campaign, to have a goal in mind and have an idea of a budget of how much you want to spend. So I think anywhere in the range of $500 to $1,000 is a great budget to start with, to start experimenting with ads. Any lower, like in the $200 to $300 range, you might be pushing it a little bit. You might feel like you didn't get the expectations you wanted. But if you're, let's say, for example, you have this awesome video. It's like a live video. Music videos, by the way, like traditional ones, don't actually do very well with Facebook advertising. The best thing is sort of like the world we live in now, which is all like candid videos, something that's very intimate and personal. Those do great, like nature outside videos with you and a guitar, something like that. So let's say you pour, $500 to $1,000, maybe even $2,000 into a video, and then you post it on Instagram and Facebook and you get like 3 likes or like 100 views or 200 views. And you're like, what the heck? If you decided to put the same amount of money you put into the video into Facebook advertising, you could then get hundreds of thousands of views on that video. And you would have all the information for those people. So start thinking about budgets in terms of that. Like, I want to put a campaign where I'm going to try and get, 2,000 likes on this video or something like that, and then try to get those people to engage with my Facebook page or my Instagram page. And then eventually you might try to do a follow-up ad where you try to get them on your mailing list by offering something like a behind-the-scenes look at how you made your last record, or maybe a special book of poems that you've written, something that has tangible value that you can offer for your email list. So that's kind of the idea with the budget. And now I want to talk a little bit about how you're going to advertise and how you're going to learn this stuff, because it's kind of complicated. If you've ever gone down this route, it's very techy. There's a lot of troubleshooting involved. It can make you want to pull your hair out, I'm not going to lie. But like I said, it's a valuable resource. So the main thing that I would recommend is a company that I love called Indapreneur, and we'll have their links in the show notes here. In Indapreneur, they have something called Fan Finder, which is a little course, and I took it, and that's how I got the results I did on my ad that I was talking about earlier with the hundreds of thousands of views and thousands of likes and things like that. And so I would highly recommend doing that. I think that it is an incredible resource, and I think it's fairly priced. They actually have a thing where they do about $40 to $50 a month right now where you can get all their courses. So if you can budget it out, you could even do it for a month, cancel it, but learn all the material that you need, or you could do $40 a month and add it into your budget as a marketing research thing. So I highly recommend Indapreneur. You can go to indapreneur.io, I believe is the web address, and you can sign up and jump right in. The other one that I've heard of that I think is legitimate is Ari Herstand, who is another mega mogul person in the music industry these days with indie artists. And he has a course that I just looked up that is currently closed, but you can sign up to get notifications when it opens. And I think his approach is interesting because he took an approach that's more towards using Facebook ads to directly increase your Spotify plays and grow your Instagram audience. So these are two courses that I think are both legitimate, have slightly different approaches, slightly different vibes. Ari has a very strong vibe. This guy from Indapreneur, Circa, also has a very interesting vibe. So if you like one person more than the other, I would go with that. Use your gut. But I think you'll get great results from either course. And I might stay away from non-music related Facebook advertising courses just because music is such a specific thing in the Facebook advertising world. If you're trying to market like something like toilet paper through online advertising, it's very different than marketing your music. So there's not really a blanket thing. You can't just go on YouTube and search how to advertise on Facebook and expect to get the same results that you would through a course like Indapreneur and their Fan Finder method. So I'm totally repping them hard. I think it's a great program. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here with Facebook ads is that it's really important to understand the framework of why you're marketing and advertising in the first place. And that's kind of taking like that more 10,000 foot view picture of like, what in the world is your marketing plan for your music in general? And this is where I'm going to circle back to Indapreneur because they have a beautiful system that they've created called the Buddy System. And if you just Google search the Buddy System Indapreneur, you can start to get kind of like an idea of what they're talking about. They also have a great podcast called Creative Juice that you can subscribe to that goes way more in depth into all the things that they're talking about with advertising. But the three things I want to talk about with the buddy system today is the idea that when you are trying to engage a fan with your music, you need to have three different pieces in place at the very beginning. You need to have an introduction, you need to have an education phase, and you need to have a permissions phase. And then after all three of those have been completed, then you can try to initiate a sale or having them buy something from you. So just really quickly, I'm going to go over each of those. So the introduction phase is essentially the Facebook ad. It's saying it's like a video that has no call to action that just pops up on their screen, and it has a catchy little one-liner sentence like, "Mine was the most beautiful banjo you'll hear all year." Something that makes people be like, "No, it's not," or like, "I got to see for myself if that's the most beautiful banjo." Something that pulls them in, but doesn't give them that much information. It looks like a viral video. And then you've engaged them in your video, and they either become a fan or they write some snooty comment being like, I got a few of these, like, "I heard better banjo last Sunday at this show." And I'm like, okay, whatever, man. At least you watched my video. So you're going to get a lot of that, but this is how marketing works. So that's the introduction. We've done like a nice handshake agreement. We've just met each other. We're not like, holy shit, come to my house, I got to sell you my music or something. It's like way too much, you know? Pretend you're meeting someone at a party for the first time. You wouldn't go in for like, "What do you want to buy from me?" So then you're going to go into the education phase. And this is what, honestly, most of what all of us are doing on a daily basis, and it drives us crazy, which is educating our fans, which is like posting on Instagram, posting on Facebook, probably not because it's kind of dying, but you get the idea, posting on YouTube, sending out emails, playing live streams, like playing live shows. A lot of that is actually education. Some of it you may be like, oh, well, maybe I'm pulling in fans from my live stream, but I'm like, probably a lot of them are fans that have come to you through some other method. So you're just educating them. You're getting them to know you better. You're getting them to like you more. Honestly, with artists, it's all about liking. How much do they like you? How much do they believe in you? And then finally, once you've educated them for a while, let's say like maybe a month or 2 or 3, then you have this option to be like, hey, I've given you all this value, all this free stuff like live streams and posts, and I've been trying to entertain you for who knows how long. Now you're like, hey, can I get your email address, or can you get on my Messenger campaign in order for me to give you something in return? So you're still giving, but you're doing the first ask. You're like, hey, let's do it's like saying you meet a friend and you're like, hey, let's go, grab coffee or something. It's the first transaction. So then once you get their permission to enter on your email list, that's when you can start to nurture them some more, educate them more, and then finally you can make the sale once you've warmed them up. So you're taking someone who's a cold lead, warming them all the way up to the point where they're warm enough, they like you enough, and most of all, trust you enough to give you their hard-earned cash, even if that's $5 or $10 for a t-shirt. So it's super important to understand this concept before you even decide to put any money into advertising, because you want to understand that the advertising most likely is the introduction phase. You're simply introducing fans into your world. But it's a beautiful thing, because if you can suddenly turn on a faucet essentially by putting a little bit of money, well, $500 or so, turn on the faucet, bring in a flood of fans, have a system in place where you're educating them on a weekly basis, and have a system in place where they can then get onto your email list, and maybe even add a second faucet if you have the budget to try to get those same fans onto your email list by retargeting them with ads. Then you're starting to create a system, something that you can scale and grow. And this is the thing that gets really exciting with advertising our music, is that this is a system that if you build it and you start to make sales and you see that it's working, then you can just start to see if you're going to get what's known as an ROI, or a return on your investment, which means that all the money that you put into advertising, you then get it back in some ratio of hopefully 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1. It just goes up, but hopefully it's more than 1-to-1. Meaning if you put $500 into advertising, you're getting more than $500 back from sales that have come in due to the advertising. So this might be really basic information for some of you. For others, it might be just like mind-blowing. I hope that you fall somewhere in between there and that you've enjoyed this quick, simple little episode today. If you guys have any question, you can always reach out to either Sarah or myself on the Instagram. We have at Wealthy Artist Podcast on Instagram. You can message us. You can always reach out to us. I'm actually at production at elevatedmusic.co, and I'll always check that email as well. And again, if you guys are interested in learning more about how to produce songs, or if you want to do any production stuff, you can always check out my website, www.elevatedmusic.co, and check out Sarah Clanton too. She's at sarahclanton.com to see what we're doing besides the podcast. And we have a little Patreon too, The Wealthy Artist, patreon.com/thewealthyartistpodcast. And we're giving away a lot of really cool things on there, so check that out as well. All right, until next Monday, we will see you later, and Sarah will be back in action. All right, see y'all later.